Today we have a crazy entitled parent story of the not dad of the year. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, my parents are offended that I didn't share my college essay with them and never congratulate me on my acceptance. I was accepted into college, and my dad, who's never finished high school, and stepmom, who dropped out of college, tells me I wasn't. So throughout the whole process of applying to schools, there was the specific college they wanted me to apply for, which wasn't an issue. I applied, had my senior advisor send my transcripts, and turned in the essay. After this process was complete, I told my parents that my application was complete. My dad then asks to see my essay. I told him that I'd prefer not to share it and that I don't have a copy of it anyway, because I copied it and pasted it to the school's website and that was that. At first, he made it seem like it wasn't an issue, until his wife, stepmom, heard, and now they're genuinely offended. They then go on a rant about how I'm weird because I won't let them see what I wrote and it all went downhill from here. They start accusing me of never actually submitting an application because they wanted to see the essay. So I show them a screenshot of the website saying that all the requirements, essay and transcripts, were received. This still wasn't good enough. Sometime later, I received several crazy and erratic texts in all caps from my stepmom saying that she spoke with the admissions counselor and I lied about applying and that they don't even know who I am. But when I asked her who she spoke with, she never gave me an answer. I was ridiculed and called a liar for days without any proof. So sometime later, while going through my email, I see a letter from the school stating my acceptance. So I show my dad first and he's happy, but then when I confront my stepmom and ask, can she tell me who she spoke to that stated I never submitted my application, she goes crazy. She tells me to my face that what I was reading wasn't an acceptance letter. Wow. Then my dad starts agreeing with her. At this point, I think they're crazy. They told me because it stated, congratulations, we're pleased to offer you admission, instead of, you have been accepted, that it wasn't an acceptance. I didn't even receive a congratulations from them. It's like they want me to fail. All I wanted was an apology and a congrats. So as I'm talking to them, they keep going back to the essay, the one they never saw. Well, where's the freaking essay? No apology for calling me a liar and literally tormenting me. Instead, they deny the truth that's in front of their face because they can never be wrong. Oh, and the reason they're so pressed about knowing what the essay said is because they're afraid it's about them. Boy, does that guilty conscience speak. When they finally admit I was accepted, I ask them for an apology and they simply tell me, so what, get thicker skin. I can no longer deal with them because it will literally kill me. 100% as soon as you're out of there, you probably should cut them off. At the very least, go low contact because these people, they don't seem to have the betterment of your interests in mind. They don't want to see you succeed, they just don't want to look bad themselves. They're more than happy to watch you get trampled and fail at whatever you're trying to achieve as long as they seem like fine people. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys can't get enough of hearing about these entitled parents, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, my mom got mad at me for not wrapping my boyfriend's present in masculine wrapping paper. I just realized a day ago how incredibly weird the story is. My mom's always had an extreme obsession with gender roles. The story I'm talking about happened last Christmas. I was sitting at the living room table wrapping my boyfriend's present, expensive black tea and hairbands. The wrapping paper was white with tiny black polka dots. My mom walked in and stopped as if she'd seen me wrap a severed head or something. For a few seconds, she stared and then said in a condescending tone, "Do you really have to use such a feminine wrapping paper?" I just remember saying nothing at first because what the freak am I even supposed to reply? She saw this as an invitation to continue ranting about how I should change the wrapping paper and how it's inappropriate to give such wrapping paper to a young man. She got madder when I told her that she was the one who once told me my boyfriend isn't even a boy because he has long hair. She can be so weird. The wrapping paper was white with tiny black polka dots, and that's just feminine? Is every Dalmatian on the planet a female dog? I mean, I know Cruella de Vil was kind of obsessed with that color scheme, but that doesn't mean everybody that is has to be feminine aligning. Our next story is, what phrase did your parents repeatedly say to you that didn't add up? I'll go first. My parents used to say, "We support you, but do not approve of what you're doing. Your decision-making shows that you don't take responsibility for your actions." I was a good kid with a 90% GPA and lots of scholarship money for college. but I heard this phrase every time I made a choice for myself. Deciding what to spend money on, visiting friends, joining sports teams, dating X person, you name it. There's the kind of entitled parent that will rage and obviously trample you to make sure that they get ahead in their life. And then there's some like this that just never approve of anything you do and never think anything you do is just gonna be good enough. I don't know if they're being hard just to intentionally try to motivate you to work even harder, or if they're just blinded and incapable of finding any way to support their own kid, but it's sad to see. Our next story is parents forcing their kids to cut their hair. This morning I was at the barber and the kid in front of me had gorgeous long surfer hair. He looked like he didn't want to be there, and he said his parents were making him cut it short for a wedding. He kept mentioning his parents' requirements: taper, off ears, short back and sides, and he looked to be on the verge of tears when the barber was finished chopping his hair to a generic short length. As someone forced to go to a military school as a kid, I hated seeing it. When I was a kid, my parents definitely had a phase where they really wanted to control how long my hair could get. And once I hit probably about 10 or so and I had a little bit more leeway, I started really digging my heels in, and for a long time I had really long hair. Mainly motivated, I believe, because it felt like I wasn't given a choice earlier in life. As a kid with a naturally higher hairline too, there was only so many forced short haircuts you could tolerate before you're like, I'm tired of this, let me grow my hair out. Our next story is, my mother and brother didn't visit me for 4 years. My brother and mom live in another country, 2,000 kilometers, and they visited me only once 4 years ago when I begged them to come because my dad was in the hospital dying of cancer. Mom and dad didn't get along well in general, but they had a long-distance marriage. I was worried about him until the end. I got a diagnosis where I had to go to physiotherapy, and I told my mom, to which she didn't react too much, and then I told her that she doesn't have to ask me anything anymore because I got angry at her cold reaction. She reacted by saying that I was blaming her. My brother, 30 years old, who lives with her, attacked me because he didn't want to see or hear me because I stated a fact that has been bothering me for years. I have to renew my identity card these weeks in their city, and we haven't had contact for a few days, and I don't know what to do next. I feel very bad and cry for days, and they obviously don't care. Again, I need advice. Thank you in advance. I guess my question would be, does OP have to lean on these people? Is there anything that they require being involved with them for? OP mentioned they have to renew their license in their city, but does that mean anything as far as having to make contact or staying with them? Because if not, even though these people are blood related, they're not treating you like family. They're not deserving of your time, your focus, your energy, your emotions. Leave them behind and focus on thriving. I almost guarantee in due time OP would feel better than trying to entertain any kind of relationship with these people. This next story is, mom defends brother. Screw me, right? My mom has a habit of defending my brother every time he does something wrong. She's a big subscriber to the I can criticize, but you can't school of thought. Anyway, I live with my brother because mom had a midlife crisis that essentially resulted in me buying a house and living there with my brother. The deal as mom laid it out was that we would split the rent and split the cost of repairs and house projects. My brother has paid for 2 appliances and hasn't helped me pay for any repairs, though he does give me rent that he usually pays on time. If I'd been by myself, I wouldn't have chosen this house. It's cute, but it's also a fixer-upper, which is what my brother wanted because it has good old bones. My brother said he would do work on it, and he did before we moved in, though I had to beg, cajole, and yell at him to get the work done. He did a lot of it drunk, half-hearted, and would spend the majority of his time building a band room for his friend instead of helping me, like he said he would. Anyway, the other day I had a plumber come over, and he discovered a leak under my brother's shower complete with rotting wood. I mentioned the leak to him and he was like, oh, then went back to playing video games. I mentioned it to mom later and she said, you mean the one in the corner? I pointed that out to your brother when he was working on the bathroom, but he brushed it off and said it wasn't that bad. When I got mad, she got huffy and said, it's always his fault. Like she was chastising me for being mad at my brother. She's always like this, and at this point, I'm positive that she would choose him over me if it ever came down to it. Not because she loves him more, but because she's sure I'll be fine, no matter what, while he needs saving. I'm fed up with this, and I'm planning to evict him and sell the house once I'm able. I got laid off this month, and the plumbing issue is one of the many major repairs I'm going to have to dip into my savings for. Not to mention several relatives dealing with serious medical issues while this is all going on. My brother can sink or swim on his own, and mom can deal with her son being a deadbeat piece of crap. Yeah, it's a tough decision, but I mean, if these people are just dragging you down and emotionally making you worse, it's not worth trying to fight for that relationship much longer. Our next story is, entitled Mother is Angry I Reported Her Husband for Breaking the Protective Order. My stepdad SA'd me from the ages of 13 to 15. He was emotionally and physically abusive, as well as mentally. He convinced my mother to think bad things about me and treat me like crap. He would purposely do things to make me angry and react so that he could get me in trouble. My mother called the police because I refused to apologize to him for an argument he had started. He and my mother would always exclude me from trips and family outings. They would use my disability checks they got from me on themselves and my sister. I had raggedy shoes that were falling apart. I was in high school and only had clothes from middle school that were too tight. My sister got any new clothes, food, toys, and shoes she wanted. She got professional haircuts and dye jobs, while I was stuck with at-home haircuts and dye jobs. If my sister wanted anything I had, she got it. My stepdad would convince my mother to cancel any plans she had with me to go with him. He would make fun of me for being autistic and bipolar. So would my mother, just giving you some idea of what my family was like. But anyways, a few months ago, I got a protective order against my stepdad for harassment. He would stalk me at my jobs, etc. He would harass me online. He had broken it before and he's broken it again. He made a new Facebook page and threatened me on Messenger. He said if I keep telling people that he SA'd me, that I would be sorry. Well, I reported that to the police station and magistrate. The police picked him up last night due to his threats and him violating the protective order. Keep in mind, I haven't spoke to my mother in 5 weeks due to the last exchange we had. She called my number from an unknown number. She was going off on me for reporting him for violating the order. She told me I was selfish for ruining her happiness. Like, what the actual freak? Honestly, if anything, OP should have reported this guy to the police yesterday. Let me clarify, I'm not saying that to blame OP. I'm just saying this guy deserves to be locked up for a long time. I just wonder if this is happening to OP. I wonder if some of the behavior of the mom is influenced by what the stepfather may be doing to her as well. I don't know if it's optimistic, but I'd like to believe that at their core they're not this horrible of a mother, but maybe they're a match made in the downstairs area. Our next story is, give my son your Spider-Man costume cause he's white like Spider-Man. Having just watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and how the message of anyone can be Spider-Man made me recall this story from October 2007. It had been a few months since Spider-Man 3 came out and it was Halloween. Normally I would have stayed home when my mom came from a local dollar store with cheap costumes that felt like you were wearing a pajama onesie. I had gotten a standard cowboy costume as we left the house to go to the school Halloween fair, where I met my friend who we'll call F. F had a decent Tobey Maguire Spider-Man costume on, with a mask also. We started with the most standard Halloween tradition, bobbing for apples and turning them into candy apples with sprinkles, when F gets a small stain on his suit and heads to the bathroom to clean it. A few minutes pass and F doesn't return. I get worried and tell his grandpa as he went into the school as I wait next to a few stands, when I spot this older kid who's about 13 in the same costume F is wearing, only he's too big to wear it. As I walk up to him, I say, "Excuse me, you're wearing my friend's costume." The entitled kid said, "No, my mom bought it." I say, "It doesn't fit you." They say, "Shut up," and proceeds to shove me away as I stumble. I say, "Give it back to him." At this point, the entitled kid simply grabs my arm and pulls it behind my back, telling me to stop asking him questions as I simply step on his foot before pushing him. He falls to the ground and this teen starts wailing for his mom, who quickly shows up and yanks my arm like a rag doll. "Why did you attack my son?" I say, "He started." She says, "Don't give me that. Entitled kid is a good student and kid, unlike you." Entitled mother then holds my arm as she calls for a teacher when F and his grandpa show up, and F has a small black eye and is wearing a shirt from the Lost and Found. Grandpa says, "Ma'am, is that your son?" Points at the entitled kid. She says, "Why do you care?" Grandpa whispers something to F as he speaks. F says he hit me in the bathroom while I was cleaning my costume and took it. Entitled Mother says it's his, plus someone like you can't wear it. Grandpa says why not? He said this as he began to look ticked off. Entitled Kid says he's an N-word. They can't be Spider-Man, he's white. Then the Entitled Mother added, my son is right. Spider-Man is always white. Now, for some of F's grandpa's life, he was born in the early 60s. And of course, dealt with racism for most of his life and had gone through the Civil Rights Act, the deaths of MLK and JFK, etc. And now, seeing his grandson being called a racial slur at school, he put his foot down. Grandpa says, who cares? My grandson can be Spider-Man if he wants to. And you can't say that word, young man, points to Entitled Kid. The Entitled Kid says, shut up, N-word. Grandpa simply ignored him and Entitled Mother as he left with F and me and came back with the principal, who quickly sided with the grandpa and told Entitled Mother that Entitled Kid, who was held back a few times, was to switch schools as he was expelled. Entitled Mother yelled that she was a single mother and this school was the closest to home. Principal said he'd call the cops on them for trespassing if they didn't leave. Cut to 2011, when we had the first black US president. I was with F in a comic shop looking at some comics. I picked up a new Ultimate Spider-Man comic and saw that there was a new Spider-Man as I read it, and then showed him who the new Spider-Man is. He smiled. I just have to know, did they get the costume back? Or did this horrendous kid do some classic movie trope of trying to take the kid's smaller possessions and just utterly ripping and busting it or something? Although I'm kind of glad it didn't have to get physical here, and I'm glad that the principal understood what was going on and took the appropriate action. This next story is, parents think I ruined my brother's chances for recovery. So my brother was in an accident a few weeks back, cleaning the gutters, and he fell off the ladder and hit his head on the concrete walkway in front of his house. Bad brain bleed, and it was not looking good for his chances. However, as time progressed, he was getting better and recovering a lot more than we thought he would. Towards the end of his stay, the hospital was going to release him to a local neurological rehabilitation facility by the name of Clover. Name changed and all that. I've heard horror stories of the place, and I've been to that facility many times as an EMT on various calls. And while I've never seen signs of the horrors, I've never felt particularly comfortable there. I expressed my concerns to my parents about the place, even saying that I wouldn't let my Nana go there even though we've never gotten along. She hates me and the feeling is mutual. Even with that, I'd not stick her there. My concerns were blown off. So I talked to the nurses there that were taking care of my brother, and they put my mind to ease. Clover Nursing Home is a hot mess, and I had a right to be worried. Clover Rehab, on the other hand, has a solid reputation as being a good rehabilitation facility and is not affiliated with a nursing home at all. Never having run any calls out there, I had no idea other than they existed. I relaxed, and that was that, or so I thought. Day of my brother's discharge, and they're no longer sending him to Clover. His insurance rejected that, and instead opted for in-home rehab. My parents are convinced that I called up the insurance company and demanded that they not send him there, as if HIPAA laws would even allow them to talk to me without medical power of attorney. I tried to explain that and that the decision was more likely due to the fact that his recovery has progressed to the point where the insurance company didn't think it was worth it to spend the money on a bed when in-home is cheaper and his recovery has progressed so well. But now my mom and dad aren't speaking to me apart from one hate-filled rant about how I'm a horrible daughter and a disgrace for ruining my brother's chances for a full recovery. Hopefully they would move past this. I think it is important to understand they're probably emotionally dealing with a lot. This might just be them trying to lash out in some way. I would just say try to stick it out, try not to take it too personally, and hopefully things will move past that. Our next story is Entitled Mother Tries to Return Food That Her Child Crushed. For some context, I, male 18, work in a very popular sandwich shop. And in our specific shop, our deliveries are done by whoever is working that can drive. And during the hours that I work the close hours. There are 2 people on at a time. So while my coworker was out on delivery, I was alone in our shop to serve any customers. While serving these customers, Entitled Mother and daughter walks in, although at the time I didn't realize what would happen. Entitled Mother ordered our smallest size of sandwich for her daughter and a pizza slice for herself. The pizza slice comes in a small box, while the sandwich comes wrapped up in paper so the box gets put in the bag first. Everything during the ordering process went about as smoothly as all the other orders that day, so I thought nothing of it. So I went back to serving and cleaning the shop at any point I had the time to. While I was ringing up a customer after finishing their order, Entitled Mother comes back into the shop with daughter in tow, and Entitled Mother does not look happy. She slams the box down on our counter and begins her tirade. "Excuse me? Do you mind telling me what's wrong with this box?" After taking a short look at the box, I could tell it was either dropped or crushed. I opened the box and there was marinara pasted all over the inside of the box, mostly around the middle, so it had obviously been crushed by an outside force concentrated in the middle. I said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but why take it back?" She says, "I want a full refund for this. It is absolutely disgraceful that you would give me something in this state." I say, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't give you a refund as it's against our policy here. If you wish, I can make you another for free." She says, "I freaking hope it would be for free, but I don't want another, I want my refund." I say, "As I have already said, I cannot give you a refund. And even if I could, I wouldn't, as the box did not leave the shop in that condition, so you wouldn't be eligible for a refund." She says, "You seem to forget you have a whole website for feedback from customers. I could get you fired." I say, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down as there are a lot of people in the shop right now, and your child seems visibly uncomfortable, so please either leave or quiet down and let me make you another one." She says, "I will not quiet down until I get my refund." I say, "I have other customers to serve and this slice cost you £2, so here." I reach into my wallet and pulled out the £2. "Take this and leave." Entitled Mother left after I handed her the £2, and I threw out the slice to then serve based customer. After I started serving based customer, before I could even ask him what bread he wanted, he said, "She's a freaking handful, isn't she?" That made me laugh, so it's important to the story. It's nice to be able to laugh after a situation like this. It's always nice in general to have somebody like based customer around who understands just how to tactfully address the situation in a way that kind of de-stresses you without making you cycle around thinking about it. Our next story is, and this year's Dad of the Year award goes to the surprise of some, here I am back again. Unfortunately, something went down today that absolutely blows my mind, and I simply needed to share with the rest of the class. So today, like most weekdays, I went to the gym. In said gym are locker rooms where one can shower and change after getting all sweaty lifting heavy things up just to put them back down again. I'd just finished the dry portion of my workout and went down to the locker room. As a rule, I try and avoid spending time in the locker room. There's a whole bunch of nope in there. Just get in, do what I need to do, and beat feet. Today, I unfortunately ran into one of the most blithely ignorant humans I have ever encountered, and who I presume is his son, who is nonverbal. I'm unsure if nonverbal is the right word to use. He could make noise, just not words. I managed to get the holy grail of lockers today, and I was inordinately pleased to have it. It was the number 69 for those curious. Yes, I am aware I am an overgrown child. No, I refuse to apologize for this. So I'd just come down to the locker room as a sweaty and stinky mess, just trying to grab my bathing suit so I could change and do my cardio in the pool. Unfortunately for my intentions, there was a man who was about my age, mid-30s, trying to cajole his son, around 8-year-old male, away from the locker. His son, however, had no intentions of going anywhere, and they started to do that one blood-curdling screech, unique to nonverbal children when they're upset. I'm a little puzzled why there's an enraged child trying to open my locker while this guy stands there watching. So I wait for the man to disengage the kid from my locker, and then warily approach it and open it. Dude just goes, "Oh, thank God, I was afraid we wouldn't have this locker." He gets really upset when we don't get the locker he likes. Now, if I didn't already have all my stuff in that locker and wasn't trying to get into the pool before my heart rate went down, I probably would have obliged him. But as things were, I wasn't having it. "Sorry man, I kinda just need to change and get to the pool," I replied, and proceeded to get out of the sweaty clothes, don the bathing suit, and grab the stuff I need for the pool before shutting, locking, and scrambling the lock. Lockers at my gym use a 4-digit combination style lock. Before bravely running away to swim 500 meters and then soak for a bit, perhaps 20 to 25 minutes later, I'm all done with my swim and feel rather noodly as one does after a good swim, and I come back into the locker room where there's a familiar looking boy trying different combinations trying to get to my locker. Only there's no adult present, just the kid in the entire aisle of lockers, making frustrated sounds every time the combination doesn't work. I'm angry on this kid's behalf and honestly astonished that the guy thought this was the heads-up play. I'm also acutely aware of the consequences of even touching this kid and something going wrong. So I promptly decided to pass that buck right along. So I called the front desk on the "oh crap, I forgot my combination" phone and explained the situation, and they promised the staff member would come right over. Male staff member comes in. I see him and flag him down and indicate the kid still valiantly attempting to brute force the lock to my locker open. Staff member attempts to get the kid's attention. No sauce. Staff member then tries to pick the kid up and promptly gets his eardrums blown out by the kid's shriek. Staff member promptly puts the kid back on the ground and withdraws. He promises help is on the way. Kid goes right back to trying different combinations. My gym is rather fancy. It includes not only a regular daycare, but a special needs daycare. Said special needs daycare staffer was actually concerned when the kid wasn't dropped off, and wound up heading down to the locker room to retrieve the kid. So the first guy comes in and asks that everyone be aware a female staff member was entering the locker room, and this poor woman comes in staring at the floor. The first guy guides her over to the kid, and then she brings out her secret weapon, some kind of fidget toy. After a minute, the woman gets his attention and shows him the toy. The kid promptly takes the toy from the woman and makes not a peep when the woman scoops him up and carries him out. Meanwhile, I'm still standing there dripping wet like, what just happened? First guy had to unlock my locker for me because the kid's attempts to get the lock open had scrambled whatever I'd put in the first place. And then he asks me to come talk to the staff after I shower. I do, and I'm brought into a manager's office so I can relate what exactly happened. Midway through my story, a woman about bursts into the manager's office, frantically demanding to know where her son is. Manager calms the woman down enough to listen and asks her to take a seat, and her son will be brought right down. Then the manager grabs the phone to call someone and asks that the boy be brought to his mother in the manager's office. The mother begins to stress vomit words out. They weren't precisely coherent, but from what I could piece together, father dipped out on mother and son after it was found their son had special needs and was likely never to speak. Wanted nothing to do with the kid. Time passes and eventually the father reaches out, feeling guilty apparently. Starts taking the kid on a weekday for the day now and again. Mother actually gave the father money to take the kid to a petting zoo today. Next thing she knows, the gym is calling her saying they found her son all alone in a locker room and are having trouble locating the father, and she's listed as an emergency contact. The whole time this is playing out, I'm just sitting here like, I just want to go home. Then the staff member from before enters the office with the kid, who is promptly reunited with his mom. The mother is overjoyed. I think the kid's happy too, it's kinda hard to tell. Staff member retreats, and I think, for the love of God, take me with you at her, but to no avail. It was at this moment that a trainer who looks exactly like Ivan Drago is escorting the father into the office. Looking at this dude like he's scum, that's when the shouting started. How could you be so irresponsible? He's your son. He was fine, perfectly happy to stand there and try and open that jerk's locker, pointing at me. So you left him alone in the locker room? I needed to work out. None of this was my idea anyway. What difference does it make if we didn't go to that stupid petting zoo? It's all the same to an R-word like him. After a solid minute of shouting by both parties, the kid starts to screech, and both parents are going at it hammer and tongs. I catch the manager's eye and tip my head towards the door. She rolls her eyes but gives me the nod. I wasted no time fleeing the scene. You know, I really don't understand what the point of bringing OP into that meeting was. Besides the fact that OP got to see what went down, maybe it was about somehow trying to keep OP's business, or that they wouldn't complain about this, that hopefully they could make OP feel like they resolved this issue and it won't happen again or something, I don't know. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy entitled parent story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.